So we're about to be live here, just a heads up.
Okay.
Like officially.
Oh, now it says live on YouTube. That's different.
Okay, perfect. I love it when I do something right.
Yes. Me too. I'm excited.
No, if only I could tell everybody, or ever say everybody, I don't know, whoever's on the page to, hey. Okay, let's see. I have the link here. Just give me one hot second to fix this, and then we can actually jump in. You guys, I'm so excited.
Me too.
This is like,
I'm so sorry that it's this way. I probably will be home just in time, to like show face.
All right. Well, we'd love to see you and say hey if you get the opportunity, but please drive safe. Do not. We are not worth anything, so do not.
No.
All right. I'm gonna fix this link. Maybe I'll do my little opening spiel while we get started here.
Got it.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the very first sort of series that I've kind of coined the term of like cafe, and I tried to make an acronym out of that. Right? Yeah. I've been out of school for a couple months. I've tried to get like the acronym out of it of like conversations about future empowerment, just because I find that I almost wish a lot of the conversations that I had with like people at school and yada, 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 I wish that they were somehow documented. And part of that like reality is this sort of experience, because I want to expand that to the wider base. And I also feel like it kind of lays out a really nice foundational aspect to what I want Friendly to be and the kind of conversations that I want the platform to sort of exhibit and launch. So why don't we take like a minute each and just sort of like introduce ourselves. You can do total shameless plug, your background, who you are, I don't know, where you are right now, yada, 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 all those things. Candace, let's start with you.
Awesome. So my name is Candace Peterkin. I am the founder of a digital magazine by the name of She Is Art. And the magazine's purpose is to uplift and empower everyday women of color, in particular Black women, by just providing a platform for them to share their stories. And so we interview women, whether that be locally or globally, and just allow them to speak about topics in regards to racism, sexism, and anything else that the women may want to speak about. I currently finished my bachelor's degree in international business, but I have minors in peace and justice, Black studies, and marketing. I am also currently going for my master's degree right now in a master's in management, but it's entrepreneurship focused. I have a strong interest in hearing and sharing the stories of Black people and the different experiences that they've had in this country as well as outside of this country. And so with my platform, I just try to leverage that and create a space for Black women to feel catered to feel heard, and to feel like their voices matter.
I love that so much. And is part of the major reason why I wanted to make sure you were on this today with us, because you have such a strong background, like academically, but you also have such a strong background just creatively. And I think I can go ahead and like spoil it, but we did an episode of the podcast together that just like I still think about today, and is like one of the ones that I'm just especially excited to share with people. So gosh, Candace, thank you so much for being here. Vanessa, tell us what you're all about.
Sure, totally. My name is Vanessa Zielinski, and I am a recent graduate from the University of Texas at Austin. The reason why I'm on this call and why I have any significance these days is because I am one of the founders of the Class of 2020 agency, which is a for Gen Z by Gen Z agency that was started out of our bedrooms because of the COVID crisis. It's not like a really fun topic to talk about, but it's something that is relevant and real and we can't avoid. I guess really the little background of what we do is We are 4 students from the University of Texas at Austin that were ready to jump into a career in marketing and research and PR. But, you know, in March, all the conversations we were having, everything that happened kind of just stopped, you know, because the world was going through this crisis. And so we just thought to ourselves, well, we're still so valuable to what's going on. There's still so much work that needs to be done, communication to be had. There's so many perspectives that still need to be out there. So how can we be of service in this time? So we came together, created a platform called Class of 2020 Agency, and our goal is to be able to collect the voices of Gen Zers and to be able to authentically color the stories of the data that is out there. I think every agency wants to talk to Gen Z and like make a movement. But more than ever, we know it's crucial that it's not talk, it has to be action. It's not a show, it has to be authentic. And I think a generation that understands that more than ever is our generation. And I don't want just some data and statistic be behind $1 million campaign. I want real people to come in there. And so we have a lot of like really cool plans and goals with this agency, but it's been a massive learning experience. I genuinely really wanted to just work for somebody, but working with students that have so much passion has truly been incredible. So I'm in Austin, Texas, was planning on being in New York, but I'm very, very thankful to be here right now. And I'm happy where I'm at, and I'm just learning a lot. So I can't wait to talk about it, and can't wait to hear more about your experience for both of y'all.
Aw, God, I think you know this, and I feel like we've had so many great conversations about, it's very similar to like what we're going to be talking about today, but also kind of what you touched on of just the resilience and making the most of what you have.
Yeah.
And that in and of itself is just probably one of the most mature and professional things that you can do. I'll go ahead and I feel like at this point, nobody wants to hear from me. They want to hear from you guys. I'll just give a very quick, brief. My name is Jacob Wittenberg. I founded Friendly this past week, which is super exciting. I'm so thankful that this sort of platform is now live. But part of the major mission of it is to not focus on me whatsoever. It's to really highlight these other young, creative, ambitious, powerful, and just dominant young creators like Vanessa and Candice, and show their faces to the world and be like, look, there are young people who are doing insanely incredible things that really just sort of defy the traditional trajectories that we've been taught up till this age. And so that's part of Friendly, and really just leveraging every single creative aspect and recognizing that there's so many different resources out there to learn and educate yourself, and many of those resources coming from other people, which is part of the reason for this series. My podcast with Friendly launches on Tuesday. I am incredibly excited. It's been the most rewarding and fulfilling passion project through quarantine mostly. I've spent the last few months, we are almost done with the first season of the show, which is crazy that we're now at the point where the episodes that I'm doing are okay, this is going to be out in a few months. So really, I just feel like I have a stockpile of stories that are just itching to be shared, and I finally get to start doing that on Tuesday. But today we're going to be talking with Vanessa and Candice and myself kind of just about youth leadership and what that means. And the sort of original idea for this sort of session that we're going to have today came from the realization that I felt like when I launched Friendly, people were asking me certain questions and were the phrase of looking up to you as a peer felt so strange and very much like the imposter syndrome. And it was almost confusing. And I was like, well, maybe we need to have this conversation of one, what is youth leadership? Two, why is there such a demand for it? And sort of think about that. But also three, what are the implications and what are the results of having a sort of leadership position? Because that's a little daunting and that's a little scary, especially because everything up until this point has taught us that really true quote unquote leadership comes with a certain age. And we haven't really hit that sort of milestone yet. And so it's really confusing. But I don't know, over the past few weeks, we see young people making national headlines, and it's kind of stirring up a conversation that I'm so excited and eager to have. So I think the best place for us to sort of start this conversation today is Let's start with this. This is very kind of like a cliche question, I guess, but like the definition of leadership. And Candace, we can start with you. Like, how would you like define leadership to somebody who's never heard of it before?
The way I'd define a leadership, I think it's someone who has the guts to say, I'll go first, or I'll do this, or I got it, and because oftentimes a lot of people are scared to navigate things that are uncertain to them. And to have someone say, you know what, I'm scared, but I'll go first. I'll do it. Like it's almost like when you are jumping off of a cliff or you're trying to jump into the water and there's one person who just jumps first. It gives other people the okay to then jump. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's kind of what leadership looks like. If I was to picture it, it's someone having the bravery and the hearts to say, I know everyone is afraid and so am I, but I'll go first. And then everyone feels okay then to do the same thing, And so that's kind of what leadership looks and what it means to me.
I mean, I want to piggyback off of that because that's seriously like the visual of that is so real, of jumping into the unknown, and the unknown could be anything. Like it could be something beautiful, but it could also be something very scary. I mean, vulnerability is literally being like, something bad can happen, but I'm trusting that my heart, my head, the people around me, I'm in the right place, and you go for it. So I think that's like a perfect example of like what leadership looks like. But another point of leadership that I'm learning is that, to lead is to bring other people with you. Like you don't lead yourself. If you're planning on going something alone, you're not leading anybody. But like leadership is creating a safe place for others to thrive and having the ears to hear what they need, and creating a vision that is colored by other people's needs and wants, and like remembering that like the mission has to like resemble the people around you, and everybody is on the right path. So yeah, I think I'm just like learning so much of, you have to constantly listen. You constantly have to think like, is this working for the people around me? Am I creating a space that lets people thrive? Because I'm not going to lead myself. I have to help lead others and uplift them. So strong communication. That to me is a lot of leadership.
No, you are, oh my gosh. No, you guys truly like almost took the words out of my mouth, and actually probably not. You probably said it better than I ever could. But no, I completely agree. It's a level of like compassion. And I think often like the distinction between like being a leader and being like a spokesperson, I guess kind of gets a little bit blurred, because with leadership, we think like, oh, power and decision. Whereas like, truthfully, the root of it is supposed to be a representative of other people, and like be that sort of echoing or microphone to people's voices and feelings. And I hate to be this person to like cite like a book, because this is so unlike me whatsoever, but this like just came to mind. I'm reading a book right now, and in it she talks about like the difference between like people using the phrase like I can't imagine, and how like that phrase has two different sort of meanings or motivations behind it. Like one being like, truthfully, like from their roots, they have tried to comprehend and consider something, but they just can't, and that confuses them or worries them. And then the second is a sense of judgment or being appalled by it. And I think that that's really powerful and reflects kind of the conversation we're having of leadership takes in all the ugly feeling and the emotion, and tries to comprehend it without jumping to that conclusion that they can't understand it. And it's recognizing that in that position, your values are, if not as equal, less than the people that you're representing. I don't know if that makes sense, but I feel like that's such a true moment, because in the moments where people have called me a leader and I feel uncomfortable about it, it's because I'm representing something that they stand for. And that's why like you're graced with that sort of title. And I'm curious to know if whoever can jump in, but like, is there a moment where like you had that sort of imposter syndrome of somebody thinking of you as a leader, but you didn't really like feel it yourself?
Go ahead, Candace.
No, yeah, you can go ahead, Vanessa. That's fine.
Oh, I saw the screen pop up. I mean, definitely. And I think like I am somebody that will jump in first, but not assuming that I'm the only one. I very much believe that like if I'm going to do it, you'll come with me. And so there have been times where I took the bold move. You know, I sent that first email. I said, I'll take on the meeting. And I, you know, had to go for it alone. And, you know, I think I don't give myself a lot of credit sometimes. Like, I think I need somebody like right behind me, like holding me up at all times. And in those moments where I was able to stand up and actually go for it. And like I led the meeting. I had the conversation. You know, I brought an idea out in the world that wasn't like, you know, approved of. It kind of helped me believe in myself a little bit more. But I think a lot of times I have to believe that like I don't need some like three people behind me at all times. Like you can move forward. And I think for me a huge thing is being like, you know, the cliches of the world, like, you know, just because a CEO has done this for 20 years, like he had to learn everything I'm learning. Like I have to like physically experience the failure, the awkwardness, those new conversations to have my own perspective. So I think like once you understand that like you are building a tool set of perspectives, the imposter syndrome goes away because I just want people to see me as a person that's like willing to learn, and that's it. Like there's a lot of cliches in leadership and business and stuff like that, and you kind of have to just be open to embodying those cliches and being ready to learn. But yeah, definitely the imposter syndrome gets to you.
Mm-hmm. For me, I think leadership has to come with a lot of passion, because I know, and I remember when I was pitching for a pitch competition for my school, they have this thing called the startup company, like the startup program, sorry. And basically it's like Shark Tank. And I was the only Black school of a white school, and so our percentage of Black students are very, very low. And for me to get on a stadium in the stadium pole and pitch my company and have the confidence and the willpower that I had, I know a lot of people were inspired and looked to me as a leader after that, because then it was kind of like I paved the way for others to then do that, you know, and to feel fearless while doing it. And so, but I truly believe if you are passionate in something, you will go as far as, you know, you desire. And no matter if the road is like super bumpy or if it has like all these different patches, you're still going to try to drive through it, over it, and still get, you know, to where it is that you want to go. Because again, you have this passion, and what passion brings is like a fire to keep pushing forward. And so that's what I truly feel like embodies, or what leadership has attached to it. And with that, you can do it, just about anything.
Candace, I have a question based on that passion, because I think like if there is anything that threads the three of us together is that we're all very passionate people. Like, you know, we can all be on our pedestal and talk about something that we love probably forever. And I think like that truly is kind of like the common thread here. But I guess for me, when it comes to passion, like sometimes I get so stuck in my head and I'm thinking like, am I getting ahead of myself? Do people see it this way? Like sometimes I don't even realize it is a passion. I just like, that's how my brain works. So I guess for you, like, do you have people that like, who are the people that you go to when you have a big idea, when you feel like maybe misunderstood or you don't know like your next path forward? Because I know sometimes with my passion, I just get like, I feel like I have to do it and I get like all into it, but I need to be able to express it to people and like get people to like help me move forward. I guess what does that look like for both of you? Like who encourages you in your passion?
For me particularly, I think I try to go back to my roots. Like I talk to my mother, I talk to my grandfather, I talk to people that know me personally and know like what it is that I've loved since I was a child, that I loved even to this day, because they can see that it is in alignment with the passion and the love that I had since I was young. You know what I'm saying? So if they know that, because for instance, me, when I was growing up, everyone in my family knew that I wanted to be a history teacher just because of Black History Month, you know? And so for them, it's like, she wants to do this, but but what I'm doing is going to be empowering Black people. And they know that that passion is coming from when I was a child and had this desire to be a history teacher just because of Black History Month. And so they're going to advocate and say, yes, you should do that. Don't be afraid, because even when you were younger, this is something you wanted to do. And if you don't do it, you're going to not only be turning on yourself, but you're also going to be turning on your inner child. So definitely go forward and talk to the people that know you from when you were like young. So that's what I do.
Girl, that is powerful to be able to like go back to your childhood. You're like, this is my calling. So that's awesome. What about you, Jacob?
Well, gosh, I feel like I have to follow up to like Candace, like first, like you're just like the metaphor of like the road that you sort of use, I think is so powerful. And I have so many questions for you because like in my mind, you are such a natural leader. Like that was just like what you are doing right now just feels so like this was her like destiny because you do it so well. But I think in terms of like looking back and sort of, I totally agree. I have those moments. Like I even had like a couple weeks ago, like I woke up in the middle of the night and I was like, oh my gosh, like, am I doing everything that I'm meant to be doing? Am I doing it right? Like, is this how I should be spending my time? And I think what kind of made me push away all those thoughts and fall back in love with what I love doing is seeing other people do what they love and going, oh, like it's totally okay to follow your passion and to be unapologetic about it and sort of give up on any worries or woes. And I mean, just hearing Candace being like, I looked back at who I was and realized that this was going to be like the fulfillment that I needed. And like, I'm like, then I look at myself and I'm like, oh, okay, what makes you the most happy? It's things like this, talking to other people, hearing their stories and like bringing it to life and discussing with them, like, what else can we be doing? It's that collaborative aspect.
Yeah.
And then I guarantee you, once this like thing ends, I'm going to need to create something. I need some sort of like outlet because that's just how I like charge. That's the sort of like fuel that I need. And part of like, I've struggled so deeply creatively these past couple of months because I am in the same room almost all day. I am like just trying to figure out what I can get my hands on without having anything at like my disposal. Yeah. And so like that's been like the hardest part of it. But then every once in a while I hop on and I do a podcast episode and I'm like, oh my gosh, this person like is younger than I am, built a whole business during quarantine themselves. Like, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I can do this. And then I seriously spend the rest of the day doing something that I never anticipated. Yeah. So it's like those kind of things and hearing other people's stories, which is why I feel like what we're doing today is so important and hopefully will be a resource. And I'm so excited to see you.
Yes, hello.
Aww. Okay, so you got back safe.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
A girl can do it all.
She really can. She really can. She like just wanted to make the grand entrance. I love it.
Yeah, I know. My heart stopped. I was like,
Vanessa, I wanna ask you too, because we recorded an episode of the podcast a couple weeks ago, and again, it was also one of my favorites just because we were so transparent. Do you find that like having that sort of conversation and how I view you, and I've only known you for just over a year now, but I feel like it's been much longer, in a good way. Yes. Has that sort of like natural like instinct of leadership always been something that sort of comforted the idea of being a leader? Like, did you feel like you had that sort of same reality as Candace, where it's like, oh, like this, although a different sort of path and role, like it does reflect on the true like intention I had?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good question. It's cool hearing Candace go back to your childhood because Honestly, it's not something I have done, but just in these moments, like these seconds of reflecting, I think I could probably do the same thing. I think I could have that conversation with my mom, and I probably should be having those more down to this root conversations. You know, instead of thinking of like where I want to be, I should think of like who I have always been and be rooted to that. So that is honestly, Candace, great advice. I am going to meditate on that. But yeah, I mean, I think ever since I was little, I have always had this like energy of not being in front of people, but of just like asking big questions. I was never afraid of the unknown, and I always like found it very fun to like discover new things. Like I always wanted to watch the new TV show when I was little, try the new thing, blah blah blah. Like it never scared me. And so when I was presented with the opportunity to do class of 2020 or intern in New York, all I could think of is what are all the things I didn't know existed in this. Like I just know this is going to open 1,000 new doors, and like I just feel like I have to open those doors. Like the curiosity in me would go crazy if I didn't at least try. So I think like that has always been something a part of me. And I think the leadership aspect is that I can see the positivity in it, and it doesn't scare me. It excites me. And I can encourage others to come on that journey. I also think another leadership aspect of who I've always been is that like it's not very hard for me to see to see things in other people. Like like I feel like if I see something in you, I have to say it. You know, if you are well spoken, I have to tell you. Like if you are something, like it's just always been in me to like speak truth into people. And so, you know, bringing people on this journey when it's scary, like it's been so exciting to be able to see people like for who they are and like uplift them and say like I need you. Like there's somebody on my team, he is incredible. Like I've never worked with somebody so passionate, so good at what he does. He doesn't do and I don't have any of his skills that he has. And I just like want to tell him every day like what you're doing is so important and it's so helpful, and I could never do it without you, and I'm glad you're here. And I could probably tell him that every day because like he needs to hear it. So I guess like those have always been parts of me that I love to be. And I think sometimes honestly in like corporate America and like these positions, it's hard. Like I can't maybe tell my boss, hey boss, I see this in you. Like I think it's kind of hard in these rigid structures. So it's been exciting to be able to open doors and find the excitement rather than have to go down a path that thousands of people have already done, you know? So I think those are very natural parts of who I am. And I hope after this conversation, I can reflect on, you know, maybe like the core of who I've been and how I've behaved in the past. But yeah, I mean, yeah.
No, I love that you point out like it is important, because as much as we live like in our empowering bubbles and we have this community, even just the three of us, to like listen to each other and like lift each other up, the reality is that when we step outside of our door, like there is a reality that a lot of other people aren't living. And I think we wish they were, to like see young people or be open to new conversation, or just say, hey, maybe the way that things are like aren't really the best way that they can be. And let's be uncomfortable with that. Like let's get butterflies in our stomach. Like that's something that I've like now is kind of weird. Like I almost always crave that unsettling feeling, because I feel like that means that you are doing something so right, even if it fails, even if it's awful, even if it's just like not what you can, something you can't even imagine. Like that's like such a good thing, because you put yourself out there. And I don't know, I always like to think this is a comforting feeling of you never know who you inspire. You never know like the impact of, it's like that thought, it's like that random thought I always have, like how many like photos am I in the background of that I
Yeah.
just like don't know exist? Like something as silly as that, like you just you don't know. And I think, I mean, you're both two very like public and open people who share their stories, and in hopes that like what you throw out there into the world will be picked up and carried. But it's hard to see, and that in of itself is almost difficult to like have as validation, because you don't have somebody knocking at your door saying what you did was powerful to me. You just kind of have to trust in
Yeah.
yourself and that you did something.
yeah, you just have to be authentic. Like you can't, I don't know, for me, like I can't like function on the idea of waiting for the next moment of approval. I just have to be like, I walked into the space, I was myself, and that's it. And maybe it was super awkward and weird, but that's all I could bring, you know? I think that to me is like the most core of my own validation of like, that sounded like me. I used my own voice, you know? But I think that is a huge learning curve. When I think like maybe Candace, I'd love to hear your perspective on this, and Jacob, you know, you as well, but like I feel like starting something, you are constantly looking at like, how did other people start it? Like, what is the foundation? Like, is this right? Like, I guess, how much time did you spend like learning from others and like basing off somebody else? And at what point did you start to put your own spin on it? Because I think I'm finally getting to the point of seeing the vision of class in 2020 instead of just the foundation of class in 2020. Like, Candace, when did you start like getting your POV in your mag? I would love to hear like how you got there.
So for me, the way She's Art started is kind of really, really weird. But again, it had I guess I'd say the passion definitely sparked for us to be even where we are today. Like, I know that I've always had an interest in magazines, but I think it's not even magazines. I think I had an interest in media, just media in general. And I knew I wanted to get my foot somewhere in the door, somewhere around there. And I remember one day I was flipping through an Essence magazine, and on the cover, it said, "The Life of an Everyday Black Woman." And on the cover was, I think, Naomi Campbell. Oh. And for me, it was kind of shocking because Naomi Campbell, she is a Black woman, but she is not an everyday average Black woman who faces the struggles that, you know, is being hit by a lot of women in society. And so I was like, oh, wow, okay. So if I created a space for everyday people, you know, and highlighted their stories, maybe that can do something great for this world. And it's not to bash Essence magazine, but something that I noticed about the way that they do things, and they are somebody that I looked to when I first started my magazine. But about them, they focus primarily on celebrities, and that's something that I realized. And when it comes to looking for something that's dedicated and catered to everyday people, it's not really there, you know? And so what we wanted to do was like have this kind of tradition that focuses on the Black women and emphasizes their voices, but in a way, plays with the hierarchy scale of whose voice matters and whose doesn't. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of what we did. And I realized once I started to do that, like once my first interview, it was in Connecticut, but I interviewed a couple of women from various ethnic backgrounds, but they were all like women of color. And each one of them had the opportunity to share their experience, and they loved it. They loved speaking about themselves. They loved speaking about, you know, the things that they go through, because we don't have that many platforms for people to exercise, you know, what they're feeling inside it. And if we do, there's things such as therapy, people to talk to, but that also comes with an expense. Yeah. And so I just wanted to create this space, and their validation and their like, you know, I love this. It kind of gave me the thrive to keep on going. And so that's kind of what pushes me and excels me forward, is to see the growth in the company, but to also see people's love and desire and passion for learning more about what's happening through the company. And so that's kind of how we got to where we are.
I think like every best idea comes from like that tiny moment of like, that's off. It's always like something that's off a little. Like you're like, oh, Naomi Campbell. But the thing is like, she's not the average, you know? And it's like just seeing that and like believing that like there is something there, and the fact that you followed that, like I think what you're saying is more relevant than ever. But like it's so relevant. I'm saying like there are so many stories. And there's so many people, and average isn't what you think it is. Actually, everybody has something interesting to say, and like they deserve something said. So I love that you followed that hunch and we're like, there, I'm gonna really get into that. I love that. I'm really glad that you did that. That excites me a lot.
Candace, I want to ask you another question too, and I feel like I've asked you this question before, but I think it's just one of the biggest like thoughts I've ever I have about hearing your story and such. Do you, at that like sort of point, did you feel like were you like, am I the one to take on this, like, or am I the one to have a loud voice in this conversation?
I knew something was off just because me as a Black woman, my mother, she's an immigrant, but she lives in this country and she does not have access to a lot of different things. And for them, you know, that's to say the everyday Black woman, it was more so like I felt hurt and because I know everyday Black women faces and what they go through, and I'm sure Naomi Campbell doesn't, you know? And so for me, it was like, I need to do something, not only for, you know, how I feel, but for the people that I know who actually go through things and that's not their life, you know? And so I just wanted to create that space for them and, you know, allow them to be represented in a right way. And that's, and definitely I did feel like, you know, this is like a chosen moment, you know, because it was just a shock. And I think that shock kind of just made me go forward, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Gosh, I could literally listen to you like just speak because you have such a casually reflective sort of like look on everything. And I love in that answer that you gave that you never were like you weren't ever in it for the leadership of it. Like that was never the intention to be somebody on a pedestal or have that sort of like amplification of like, oh, I have a bigger part in this movement or this conversation than somebody else. Because that's not what like a leader embodies. It's committing unapologetically to the cause and saying, this is something that I'm going to be with, whether it like crashes and burns or it soars, like I will be there like right alongside of it.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I'm thinking about like the words youth leadership. Like I think there's leadership and then there's like the words youth leadership. And that I feel like that has such a powerful statement, you know, because you think of youth in this idea of like innocence and fun and you know they don't know the hardships of life yet, but then you pair it with leadership and there's something so powerful about it. And what I've been thinking about like youth leadership is the leaders that don't, you know, follow the steps of what's been done 1,000 times. Youth leadership comes with this boldness of standing out against what's been done and believing in the future rather than like following, you know, past steps. And when I think of youth leaders, I think of people that are so outspoken and so passionate. I think passion is a big part of youth leadership about something that they haven't seen in the world yet. Even in like our short time of being on this earth, it's that discomfort with how adults tell us things have to be, and that passion of saying, well, I'm going to come into leadership and with this new vision and this new generation. So I think like there is something really interesting about being youthful because there's this energy, excitement, this optimism of saying, yeah, this hasn't been done before, you know, older person, and that's okay. You know, it's like not being discouraged by it, but actually like being excited by the prospect of standing up for something. So, I mean, I think like being a youth comes with so much, I don't know, like there's so much to be jealous of to be able to be a leader in youth because like there's so much room to fail, I think. I guess like my question for y'all is like, what does that word youth mean for you when it comes to leadership?
I think it's tricky because it can mean like a literal age or you just haven't sort of reached some sort of checkpoint just yet, whether that be 18, 21, 30. But also there's a point of, in my eyes now, like a sense of like respect and where somebody would probably think of that age side of things, and that comes with like an experience. They haven't seen the world yet, but like even my parents will admit, like, you have gone through so much like more or watched so much of the world experience things than like they have like in their like lifetime. And what's crazy is like I do things with my family that my parents are like, I wish we had done this like when I was younger. Like I'm getting so many experiences that are so unique to our generation, especially at this time, that I feel like you can't compare between like an old or the next generation or boomers or whoever to our generation, because there is such a unique experience that we have that almost the argument of we just haven't experienced anything is so invalid and so detached
Yeah.
from the reality of today that it is almost like offensive in some sort of way. But there's also a huge amount of appreciation, because how is somebody who has all those odds stacked against them so passionate in something that they're willing just to like step out and say, yeah, nobody understands me, but this is something I care for so deeply. Like that just deserves such a huge amount of respect. And whether they be behind whatever movement or whatever cause or whatever charity or whatever organization, they're so bold in their, I want to say ignorance, but without any sort of negative connotation, like a blissful ignorance to everything else, that they are so focused in this one sort of cause, and recognize that I have witnessed things, and despite my age, like something has upset me so deeply that this is the path I have to take.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was like running around. There was a lot of noise.
It's okay.
But for me, youth leadership, a lot of what Vanessa said, really is what I'm going to piggyback off of, is having that energy. And the reason why a lot of corporate companies, I think, reach out to interns and, they scout for younger individuals is because they know that they have, this spark that may have been lost within themselves, and they're looking to attain that and get that insight that the youth has, because the youth is so pure. Their mindset is very, very open, and as you get older, unfortunately, you become a bit more stuck in your ways, and you're kind of used to the way that you do things. And so having youth come in and say, hey, like, how about we try it this way? I think that's what a lot of people look for when they look to younger generations for, advice, or whether that be new insights on things. And so I think it's very important for us to have youth leaders. I think it's very important for us to advocate for youth leaders, because they are the driving force of the future. And definitely, again, like a lot of what Vanessa said, I think is very, very important for me.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. And Vanessa, I know you kind of tapped into a little bit of like the answer kind of that you had to, but how, like, I think the follow-up question I have to like this sort of topic or question is like a lot of youth leadership comes with like that sort of drawback or that questioning or the why as to like, what about your limited or just lesser experience in terms of time on earth has made you like pursue that sort of option? There's a lot of criticism, and it's a lot easier to criticize younger people because that argument exists. And I want to talk about, as we sort of transition to the end of this and the discussion that we're having, like the results of youth leadership, and whether we can talk about the proactive side and how I have full faith that this November the youth are going to show up in record-breaking numbers and completely shock everybody. But also like the downside to it, and those people who do take that upon themselves to adopt a leadership role, how they can deal with that sort of natural criticism, whether that be over social media, whether that be face to face.
Yeah, I mean, I think like it's still like a subject to like talk about it, because I don't think every young person is excited to step into a moment of leadership. Like, it still has like that rarity to it. But when it works out, it works out beautifully in such a unique way. So I think like the best parts of it is that I think like our generation, we are empathetic. at such a high level. I think we're able to listen and speak on behalf of people that don't look like us, on a totally different level, and like authentically care about people. Like I do believe like the connection of the internet and having a more diverse world and being globalized, like I think it does create a very authentic desire and need to change things of the past. And there's like this drive within young people of being like, we've seen this like kind of fail before, and this time we know how our world functions, and we're going to fight for it and be very vocal. So I think like youth leadership at its best is like it's a rally cry. It's being like, not me but us, like all of us. Like I know that like my voice, like I don't have a lot of money, I don't have a lot of resources, I don't have a lot of power, but what I have is a lot of support, and I have energy and passion, like Candace was saying. And I think that's very important, you know, to have somebody believe in what Candace is doing and to tell her stories and to trust her. You know, she has to bring that energy, she has to bring that support, she has to bring that vision, because she's not going to be able to like pay them $1,000 like. But and for me it's like I have to convince people that for Gen Z by Gen Z is worth it. Like I have to talk to my professors, I have to talk to my mentors, I have to listen, but I also have to bring forward that perspective to have them see me. So it's a lot of work. It's a lot of like work forward, but I think it's worth it. But I mean, I think some of the hard parts of youth leadership is that, you know, there is a lot that I haven't experienced, and you know, I haven't had to pay a ton of taxes and like negotiate a ton of things. And so I think what's hard is like who you trust and like who gives you your advice and like who you learn from. You know, like I think sometimes it could be very easy to be taken advantage of as a young person. We don't talk about that a lot. You know, I think the best thing you can do as a young person is talk to a lot of people, do a ton of research, and have people that know your heart, like Candace was saying, and that won't take advantage of you. Because I hate to say it, even in my agency, in my time, like we've already navigated people trying to take advantage of us, not paying us correctly, a lot of confusion, just because that young, naive excitement, people will take advantage of that. And so I guess you have to own your voice, and you have to put your foot down and being like, I might be young, but I'm a human being and I know my worth. So I think you have to know your worth, you have to know your voice, and you have to know that like your perspective is valid, and people need to hear it. So it's definitely not easy, but laying the groundwork I think helps a lot.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I loved the point of knowing your worth, and despite what people may say, or despite how you may even like look in a mirror and see yourself, like, because everyone's going to have those days, like that is inevitable. The strongest of people have those days. I want to, Candace, how can people build that sort of like self-worth and recognize, does that come from a success in the work that they do, or does that come from like some inside out sort of reflection?
I'd say it can come from either inside out or outside in. You know, sometimes you look at the environment that you're in and you want to make a change there. And so yeah, I think for me, it can be either you looking inward, or you just again seeing that something is wrong and you have the capability to make a change there.
Absolutely. Oh, I feel like I don't know. You guys have both just like wowed me, as you constantly do. Like every single time I get the gift of talking to you both. Maybe we each want to just like close with some sort of closing thought. It can be 30 seconds or so of just like your sort of reflection of your sort of experience, where you hope like young leadership goes, and like any sort of message that you have. And I think mine, I can start, is just like, you have so much more power than you feel yourself, and the way you view yourself is so different from how other people view you, but the only view that ever matters is that upon yourself. It's always good to take in criticism and feedback and think about how you can improve the work that you're doing, especially if you're working to benefit others. But truthfully, the only voice that you can ever listen to is yourself. You were given one gut, so follow that gut. And I think just think about every single way that you can exercise your voice, and that don't take leadership selfishly either. I think I suffer a lot from thinking that somebody else's success takes away from the potential of my own, which is not the case whatsoever. Root for other people, because that's going to bring back good fortune on you. So it's important to be strong. And of course, register to vote. You check your registration to vote, because you never know what could happen there. You don't want those problems on election day. And take care of yourself and wear a mask too. That's mine.
For me, I'd say to the youth that nothing is too big for you to tackle. I think that we, again, like Vanessa said, we may look at ourselves and think, like, oh, we're young, we might not have the ability to take this opportunity on. And I think that's a false narrative. And I think older people, they look to you. They look to us for many things that we sometimes don't even know. We can teach them so much things that they don't even know. And again, nothing is too big for you. You can handle just about any and everything that you set your mind, that you set out to do and accomplish for yourself. And to always listen to your inner voice, and to always pay attention to what it is that you're doing, and figuring out if it's in alignment with what it is that you love to do. And so again, just be who you are throughout the process. Don't let anyone try to stray you away from who it is that you authentically are, and love yourself throughout the process. Life is a journey, and you're just getting started. And so have fun.
Oh, sorry, they're just so sweet. I think for me, like what I would say is learning doesn't stop when you leave the classroom. Learning is in every conversation, it's in every interaction, it's in every thought that you have. You are learning something new, and like lean into the discomfort. Like it might be hard to learn something new. You might leave a conversation thinking like, was that good? All you have to remember was that you did it. You did something new. You're training your brain to see a world in a different way. And there's so much grace in that. Like truly have grace for yourself when you do something new, because that is only going to build who you are as a person. And don't worry about when you walk into a room and people look at you. Like I've said this so many times, like people love a good story. They are not going to fixate on all the little things that are going on in your life. Like you own your narrative, own your perspective, and own your failures, because that's truly what makes us human. And people need to hear the authentic story. So say the good and say the bad and own all of it. And being young, there's so many stories to live out. And if you have an idea, follow it. And one other thing is share your ideas with people. They might surprise you. They may want to jump in with you and support you. Never be afraid of a big idea, and just jump in. Like, just speak your truth, and have fun with that. So yeah, that's kind of my advice for myself, you guys, and all the youth that might be listening.
All the youths that might be
All
listening. I love it.
it.
Well, I want to thank you guys again, truthfully, for taking the time today and spending your Sunday morning. I don't know, bright and early, at least bright and early for me. Thank you so much for, again, just your transparency and your grace and your just sort of gratitude. And it's so contagious, and the inspiration is never ending and so powerful. So thank you both so much. This was so exciting.
It was such a fun conversation. Thank you for inviting us. And Candace, I hope that we can just like talk more, because I can't wait to keep learning about what you're doing and how things have changed. So thank you so much. It was such a lovely conversation.
Yeah, no, this was awesome. Thank you for your time and your efforts and all the insight that you've provided, not only to me, but to all the viewers. And Jacob, you're doing something so great. So please don't ever stop. Yeah. And you're so amazing. You're so awesome. Vanessa, you as well. I would love to stay connected so we can just talk a bit. And yeah, this was beautiful.
Oh, you guys are the best. I always feel so good. All right, I'll end our stream, but if we want to say bye, we can.